Now, close your eyes and imagine a palace. Golden rooftops glinting under the rising sun. Courtyards so silent, you can hear the flutter of silk robes. In this hidden world, the most important creature was not a general, nor a noble, nor even the emperor himself, but a tiny lion dog nestled in the folds of royal sleeves. This is no ordinary dog. This is the Pekingese, a creature born of legend, bred in the shadows of dynasties, and carried through time on silken paws. In today's journey, we won't just learn about a breed. We will travel through myth, royalty, war, survival, and modern devotion. And as we begin, I invite you to sit back, relax, and lose yourself in the story of the Pekingese. Because this isn't just about a dog, it's about identity, loyalty, power, and heart. Imperial Lion Dog of China, a legendary history. Picture this. In an ancient Chinese forest, a mighty lion falls in love with a tiny marmoset monkey. Their love seems impossible due to their difference in size. According to legend, the lion pleads with the gods to shrink him down so he can be with his beloved. And his wish is granted, except his heart remains as large and brave as ever. From this magical union is born a creature with the heart of a lion in the body of a lapdog, the Pekingese. This charming myth of the lion and the marmoset symbolizes the fearless spirit and loyal heart of the Pekingese breed. And where there are ancient legends, there is often ancient truth. DNA studies today indeed reveal that Pekingese dogs are among the least changed breeds, genetically very close to wolves, pointing to their deep antiquity as one of the oldest dog lineages in the world. But the true story of the Pekingese is just as captivating as the myths. To uncover it, we journey to a world of emperors and palaces, where these little lion dogs lived as prized royal companions hidden from the outside world for centuries. We will witness how they survived war and upheaval, from the gilded halls of China's Forbidden City to a fateful journey on the Titanic. This is the epic tale of the Pekingese, a tale of legendary origins, imperial favor, extraordinary survival, and enduring charm. Long before the Pekingese became known to the wider world, they were the exclusive darlings of Chinese royalty. Historical records and artifacts suggest that small lion dogs existed in China as far back as 2,000 years ago. In fact, they were said to date to the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, when the earliest forms of Pekingese-like dogs were bred as companions for the imperial family. Scholars note that the arrival of Buddhism in China during the Han era likely influenced the development of these dogs. In Buddhist lore, lions symbolize protection and strength. Yet real lions had long been extinct in China. To embody the Buddhist lion guardian imagery, Chinese breeders created lapdogs with lion-like features, including the Pekingese with its abundant mane of fur, stout body, and courageous demeanor. One Han Dynasty emperor, Emperor Lingdi, 168 to 189 CE, was so enamored of his Pekingese that he awarded his favorite dog an official scholarly title, effectively making the dog nobility. This was no isolated whim. It began a tradition of granting noble ranks to imperial dogs, underscoring how revered these animals were in court life. As the centuries went on, each succeeding dynasty continued to treasure the Pekingese. By the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, these dogs had become status symbols of the highest order. One Tang emperor, Emperor Xuanzong, also known as Emperor Ming of Tang, circa 715 CE, reportedly infuriated his courtiers by referring to his small white Pekingese as one of his wives. A humorous anecdote that nevertheless highlights the special bond between monarchs and their Pekingese. During this era, it was decreed that no commoner could own a Pekingese. They were strictly reserved for the imperial household. If an ordinary person even encountered a royal lion dog on the road, they were required to bow in respect, just as they would to an imperial prince or princess. The little dogs themselves seemed to carry the dignity of their station. One historian notes that these pampered canines took their honored position to heart, displaying a proud and independent character that their masters encouraged. Over time, imperial breeders developed specific traits to enhance the Pekingese's lion-like appearance and their suitability as palace pets. The ideal lion dog was described in almost poetic terms. Let the lion dog be small. Let it wear the swelling cape of dignity around its neck. Let its forelegs be bent so that it shall not desire to wander far or leave the imperial precincts. Indeed, Pekingese evolved a distinctive high-stepping, rolling gait and slightly bowed legs. Folklore says this was deliberately bred into them so these cherished pets wouldn't run off too quickly from the imperial courtyards. Everything about the breed's look was meant to exude dignity and lion-like grandeur in miniature. They have a flat, pushed-in nose, large round eyes, a wide jaw, and a mane of long fur around the neck and shoulders, giving them a proud, ruffled silhouette. Their compact bodies are low to the ground, supported by short, muscular legs. And they often carry their feathery tails arched over their backs, much like the flourish of a lion's tail. Even in temperament, these dogs acted as if they knew they were of royal blood, courageous, sometimes aloof with strangers, and utterly confident. The Pekingese was bred for looks and personality rather than utility, and emperors liked that these little dogs could be bold and stubborn. They were not bred to be fawning or subservient, but to have a mind of their own. Within the palace, luxury and privilege extended to canine courtiers as well. Particularly during the later dynasties, such as the Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1911, under the Empress Dowager Cixi, Pekingese dogs lived in splendor. Historical accounts describe how in the Forbidden City, these dogs slept in marble kennels lined with silk cushions, dined on the finest rice and meats, and were attended to by eunuchs whose sole duty was to bathe and care for them. Some Pekingese were even given official ranks and titles at court and wore little harnesses or collars indicating their status. The smallest of these dogs, weighing only 6 pounds or less, were called sleeve dogs or sleeve Pekingese. Empresses and nobles would carry these tiny dogs hidden in the voluminous sleeves of their silk robes as living accessories. It's said that in earlier times, perhaps in imitation of this Chinese custom, European courts also fancied the idea of sleeve dogs. But it was in China that breeding for ultra-small size truly became an art. To achieve the prized diminutive stature, palace breeders purportedly employed some extreme methods. There are tales of giving puppies rice wine or even putting them in tight silk waistcoats to stunt growth. practices which Empress Cixi later banned. In any case, the Imperial kennels produced some remarkably tiny Pekingese companions that could literally go everywhere with their owners, tucked in sleeves or carried in the folds of a garment. The exclusivity of the Pekingese was guarded zealously. Stealing a Pekingese from the palace was said to be punishable by death. That's how precious these dogs were considered. Palace servants and eunuchs themselves risked torture or execution if they tried to smuggle out the emperor's prized dogs. That didn't stop a few daring attempts, as we'll see later. For centuries, the outside world knew very little about this breed. To foreign eyes, say those of European traders or envoys, occasional glimpses of a strange flat-faced lion dog in Chinese art or carried by a noble might have seemed like fanciful fiction. The Pekingese remained a well-kept secret of the Forbidden City and other royal palaces, a creature of legend and rumor. The world of the Pekingese came to a violent crossroads with Western history in the mid-19th century. Imagine Beijing, Peking, 1860, the Second Opium War rages. On the outskirts of the capital, British and French troops lay siege to the magnificent old summer palace, Yuanmingyuan, the cherished retreat of the Qing emperor. When negotiations broke down, the enraged invaders looted and set fire to this sprawling complex of gardens and halls, an act of cultural destruction so vast it's been called China's Ground Zero. Amidst the flames and chaos of October 1860, with precious artworks and silks being pillaged, a poignant discovery was made. In the private apartments of the emperor's elderly aunt, who had tragically committed suicide as the enemy approached, British soldiers stumbled upon 5 little living jewels, 5 Pekingese dogs, huddled together and frightened, but very much alive. It's believed that palace courtiers had tried to kill all the imperial dogs to prevent them from falling into foreign hands. These 5 had somehow been left behind, perhaps shielded by the princess who perished with them by her side. One of the soldiers on the scene, Captain John Hart Dunn, scooped up a lone Pekingese, reportedly the tiniest of the group, weighing only a few pounds, and took her with him. This little dog would earn the bittersweet distinction of being the very first Pekingese to reach the Western world and survive the journey. When Captain Dunn presented the dog as a gift to Britain's Queen Victoria, the monarch was enchanted by the novelty of this exotic creature. The Queen bestowed a name reflecting how the dog had come into her possession, Ludi, inspired by the word loot, spoils of war. The choice might not have been culturally sensitive, but the name Ludi forever marks this Pekingese as a living artifact of that violent clash between East and West. In 1861, Queen Victoria even commissioned a royal portrait painter, Friedrich Wilhelm Kiel, to paint Ludi's likeness. The painting shows a petite, fluffy Pekingese posed on a cushion amid oriental vases, a symbol of East meeting West. Ludi, 1861. Oil painting by Friedrich Wilhelm Kiel. This portrait of Queen Victoria's Pekingese, the first Pekingese dog in Britain, depicts the tiny lion dog seated regally on a cushion, her head held high. Ludi was taken from Beijing's Summer Palace in 1860 and gifted to the Queen. Ludi's story captivated Victorian high society. The Illustrated London News proclaimed this Pekingese to be the smallest and by far the most beautiful little animal in the UK. However, life in England was a stark change for the Imperial pup. One report noted that Ludi seemed a very lonely little creature, the other dogs taking exception to her oriental habits and appearance. In fact, Queen Victoria's journals imply she found Ludi somewhat peculiar, and the dog had a difficulty adjusting to her new home. Ludi remained a singular curiosity. She lived out her days at Windsor Castle, passing away in 1872, where she was quietly buried. In true Victorian fashion, even the royal dogs had burial plots. Meanwhile, the other 4 Pekingese from the Summer Palace had been distributed among British aristocracy. Lord John Hay took a pair and gifted them to his sister, the Duchess of Wellington, who named them Schlorf and Hetien. Another 2 went to the Duchess of Richmond and Gordon, who became one of the first to breed Pekingese in the West and helped write the earliest breed standard. These noblewomen, fascinated by the little lion dogs, set about establishing the Pekingese breed in Britain. However, Pekingese were still exceedingly rare. Initially, they could only breed using the very limited stock of those few palace rescues. Over the next decades, more Pekingese slowly trickled out of China, often under dramatic or secretive circumstances. In 1896, a Pekingese dog named Ah Kum was smuggled out of China in a crate of Japanese deer bound for Britain, a daring subterfuge, since theft of a palace dog was punishable by death in China. Ah Kum became a foundational sire for the breed in England, greatly expanding the gene pool of British Pekingese. Toward the end of her life, Empress Dowager Cixi herself, perhaps reluctantly acknowledging the West's fascination with her dogs, presented several Pekingese as diplomatic gifts. Financier J.P. Morgan received a Pekingese from the Empress, and in 1905, one was given to Alice Roosevelt, the daughter of U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt. Alice named her imperial gift Manchu, a nod to the dog's Chinese heritage. Another foreign recipient was Dr. Frederick Houston, an Irish surgeon who had helped defeat a smallpox epidemic in China. In gratitude, the imperial court honored him with a pair of prized Pekingese in 1908. Dr. Houston brought these dogs, aptly named Chang and Lady Lee, home to Ireland and established one of the first Pekingese kennels there. By the early 20th century, what began as war booty and rare gifts had grown into a full-blown Pekingese craze among Western elites. The breed's novelty, combined with its aristocratic Chinese aura, made it a fashionable pet in Britain, Europe, and America. Society ladies and even royalty took to carrying Pekingese as status symbols. Notably, Queen Alexandra, consort of King Edward VII of Britain, became a Pekingese enthusiast, often photographed with her beloved Peke adorning her royal apartments. In the United States, Trendsetters like interior decorator Elsie de Wolfe popularized the Pekingese as the ultimate lapdog for the rich and famous. Owning a Pekingese in the 1910s and 1920s was akin to flaunting a piece of old China mystique. For close to 50 years, Pekingese dogs ranked among the most popular and coveted toy breeds in Western high society. Beyond palaces and parties, Pekingese even found their way into extraordinary historical moments. In April 1912, as the luxury liner RMS Titanic made its ill-fated maiden voyage, at least one Pekingese was on board among the first-class passengers' pets. This little dog, aptly named Sun Yat-sen, after the Chinese revolutionary leader, belonged to Henry and Myra Harper, an American millionaire couple. Henry was heir to Harper and Row Publishers. When the Titanic struck an iceberg and the order came to abandon ship, the Harpers refused to leave without their cherished Pekingese. Luckily, Sun Yat-sen was a small dog, easy to carry. The couple managed to bring him along into Lifeboat 3, wrapped in a blanket. In the confusion, no one objected to a stowaway pet, and all three of them survived the night as the ship sank. Sun Yat-sen became one of only 3 dogs, and the only Pekingese known to have survived the Titanic disaster. Later, when asked about it, Mr. Harper simply said, "There seemed to be lots of room, and nobody made any objection." The story of this Pekingese's survival, floating to safety while 1,500 people perished, is a poignant footnote to the tragedy, and it illustrates just how inseparable these dogs were from their devoted owners. Meanwhile, back in China, the fortunes of the Pekingese breed were in peril. In 1911, the ancient imperial system collapsed when the Qing dynasty was overthrown. With the monarchy gone, the Forbidden City was stormed and ransacked by revolutionaries. The once sacred imperial dogs were no longer symbols of divine right. In fact, they became targets of anger as emblems of the old regime. It's said that many Pekingese in Beijing were killed or scattered during the upheaval of the Xinhai Revolution and the chaotic years that followed. Ironically, the very survival of the Pekingese as a breed now depended largely on those specimens that had been sent abroad to Europe and America. Western breeders became the custodians of the lion dog legacy, even as it nearly vanished in its homeland. In a twist of fate, the West, which first encountered the Pekingese through war, ended up preserving and propagating the breed, while China underwent tumultuous change. Throughout the 20th century, Pekingese dogs continued to enchant people around the world. They starred in dog shows. In fact, Pekingese have won the prestigious Westminster Kennel Club Best in Show multiple times. The latest was Wasabi, a Pekingese who took Best in Show in 2021, marking the 4th time a Peke earned that top honor at Westminster. During the mid-20th century, the Pekingese was among the most popular toy breeds in the West, symbolizing a touch of Eastern elegance. Notable cultural figures kept Pekingese as well. Author Rumer Godin famously adored them and even wrote about their charisma, saying, "Pekingese are not dogs, but something more." implying they possess an almost mystical character. Journalist Oberon Waugh joked that his Pekingese shared his political opinions, a whimsical testament to the breed's distinctive personality that owners love. By the turn of the 21st century, the Pekingese's popularity had waned a bit in favor of other small breeds. For example, the similar-looking Shih Tzu has eclipsed the Pekingese in many places. Breeding styles also changed the dog's appearance. Modern show Pekingese have an even more exaggerated coat, a flatter face, and heavier build than their 19th century forebears. Yet the Pekingese remains an enduring symbol of aristocratic charm. In China today, one can occasionally see a pet Pekingese trotting down a street in Beijing, no longer reserved for emperors only. Of course, the little dog itself seems blissfully unaware of any change in status. As observers like to say, the Pekingese still carries itself with the same pride and self-importance it had behind palace walls. Now that we've traced the remarkable journey of the Pekingese through history, let's take a closer look at what makes this breed so unique and instantly recognizable. Despite its small size, a Pekingese at first glance looks every bit a miniature monarch. Pekingese are toy dogs, standing only about 6 to 9 inches tall at the shoulder and typically weighing 7 to 14 pounds as adults. Don't let that fool you. Their bodies are sturdy and muscular for their size. They have a longer body relative to their height, which, coupled with their short legs, gives them a somewhat rolling gait when they walk. This signature waddle is not only endearing, but, as legend has it, was encouraged so the dogs wouldn't wander far from their owners in those imperial gardens. The Pekingese wears a profuse double coat that forms a lion-like mane around the neck and shoulders. The fur is longest at the ruff and neck and tail, often flowing and feathered, which adds to the breed's dignified, grand appearance. They come in many colors. The most common are gold, red, or sable, a mix of gold-black. But you'll also find Pekingese in cream, white, black, black and tan, and even less common hues like slate gray, sometimes called blue. Many have a characteristic black mask on the face, black muzzle and eye area. But solid-faced Pekingese are equally acceptable. One thing is constant. Regardless of coat color, a Pekingese's exposed skin on the nose, lips, and eye rims is always black. Their long fur requires regular grooming. Traditionally, owners brush them daily and keep the coat well trimmed around the feet and rear for cleanliness. In warm climates or for ease of care, some pet owners opt for a puppy cut, keeping the coat shorter. But in show rings, the full flowing coat is part of the breed's glory. Perhaps the most defining features of the Pekingese are its face and eyes. Centuries of selective breeding produced a very flat face with a short, upturned nose. This gives the Peko a push-faced profile, often with a slight wrinkle above the nose, the nose wrinkle. Their large, round eyes are set wide apart and have a dark, lustrous shine that gives a kind and noble expression. In fact, The ideal described in the Dowager Empress's time was for the Pekingese to have large and luminous eyes that draw you in. Those eyes, while beautiful, are delicate. Because they protrude slightly, Pekingese can be prone to eye injuries or irritations over their lifetime. The ears are heart-shaped, feathered with long hair, and hang flat against the head, framing the face. When you look at a Pekingese head-on, you see an alert little lion-like visage. Wide forehead, black button nose right between the eyes, and a regal, sometimes mischievous gaze. If you ask Pekingese owners to describe their dog's temperament, one word you'll hear often is dignified. These dogs might be small, but they have a big sense of self. A Pekingese tends to be loyal and affectionate with its family, often choosing one person as its favorite to follow devotedly. Yet they are also famously independent and strong-willed. Remember, for centuries they were pampered by courtiers and never bred to obey commoners. So in modern times, they often carry a bit of that entitled air. An old saying is that the Pekingese doesn't belong to you, you belong to the Pekingese. In other words, they expect to be treated with the respect due a little prince or princess. The American Kennel Club notes that these dogs were bred for centuries to be dignified and independent, largely unconcerned with the desires of those around them, and jokes that in the Pekingese mind, you are the servant in the relationship. They are brave, sometimes even to a fault, and will stand their ground. A Pekingese won't hesitate to bark at or challenge dogs many times its size, truly embodying the idea of a lion's heart in a tiny body. However, they are not aggressive by nature. They are content to sit regally and observe, joining the action on their own terms. With strangers, Pekingese can be reserved or aloof. They consider it your job to earn their trust, not the other way around. With their family, they are often sweet, loving, and even clownish at times, known to play with toys and romp when they feel secure. This balance of pride and affection makes them very charming companions. They are neither needy lapdogs nor completely indifferent pets. They simply have a mind of their own. The Pekingese's unique physique means they do require some special care. That flat face, which makes them so cute, also means they can have snorting, snoring, and potential breathing difficulties if overexerted or exposed to heat. Pekingese do not tolerate high temperatures well and are strictly indoor dogs. In hot or humid weather, they must be kept cool, as they can overheat quickly due to their shortened airways. Their large eyes require monitoring and cleaning. Owners are advised to gently wipe their Pek's eyes daily and keep the facial folds clean to prevent ulcers or infections. Because of their long back and short legs, one should be careful to support a Pekingese's spine when handling them. And stairs or jumps can be a challenge, especially in older dogs. On the positive side, Pekingese are relatively long-lived for a purebred. A well-cared Peke often lives around 12 to 15 years. A recent study in the UK found their average lifespan was about 13.3 years, slightly above the norm for purebred dogs. Like many small breeds, Their most common health issues tend to be heart problems in later life and some neurological issues. But regular veterinary checkups can manage these. Notably, due to concerns about their very flat faces, kennel clubs in some countries have updated the breed standard to discourage overly extreme flatness and ensure the dog has at least a noticeable muzzle for healthier breathing. This shows how, even today, the breed continues to evolve with human care. In terms of training and activity, Pekingese present an interesting mix. They are intelligent dogs, having been close observers of human courts for centuries. But they are not the easiest breed to train in obedience. Their independent streak means they often ask, "Why should I?" when given a command. Using positive reinforcement and making the dog think it's their own idea is key. They are typically not high energy. A Pekingese is content with short daily walks or play sessions. In fact, they often prefer a dignified stroll to any vigorous exercise. You might say a PK's favorite activity is simply being with their person, preferably in a comfortable spot where they can survey the household like the little emperor, empress they are. Few dog breeds can claim a history as rich and dramatic as that of the Pekingese. From ancient legends of love and lions, to the pampered existence in imperial palaces, to surviving the flames of war and journeying across oceans, the Pekingese has traveled an astonishing road through time. They were born of myth, revered as symbols of divine right, nearly lost to turmoil, and then embraced globally as adorable companions. Through it all, these dogs have remained unmistakably themselves. A Pekingese today, whether lounging on a modern couch or prancing in a show ring, still carries the bearing of an imperial courtier, proud, confident, and a touch aloof. As one modern Peke owner quipped, "They're not really dogs, they're Pekes," suggesting there is indeed something almost otherworldly about them. In China, stone Fu dog guardian statues stand in testimony to the ancient idea that small lion dogs could ward off evil. The Pekingese, with its lion's mane and stout heart, was the living incarnation of that idea. It has guarded the laps and hearts of people from emperors to ordinary families. In the eyes of a Pekingese, you might catch a glimpse of history, tales of silk-draped palaces and a time when emperors bowed only to the Buddha and perhaps to a little dog with a mighty spirit. So next time you see this furry lion dog trotting by, chest out and head held high, give a small bow of respect, at least in your mind. You are in the presence of dog royalty, the legendary Pekingese, a survivor of ages and a beloved companion through the centuries.